Yo, welcome into another episode of Between the Hedges. Thank y'all for tuning in tonight. Um, just would like to say good luck to Matthew, who is with his in laws for their first married Christmas for the first time. So, good luck, buddy. Have fun tonight. I'm glad to be doing this. Um, and then just a quick shout out to my dad. I hope you feel better as well. He started feeling a little under the weather earlier today. So, y'all keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He is not feeling too hot today. So, I'm riding solo. So, I appreciate y'all tuning in. We just have a quick little update here tonight on the portal and a quick early preview of the Orange Bowl, as it will be next Saturday, 4 p.m. So we have some guys that are, opting out on Florida State's side, and we'll preview how it's looking on Georgia's end as well. So, again, thank y'all for tuning in. We definitely appreciate the support that we've been getting. So, thank you guys. And without further ado, let's get into this. All right. Um, so, let's start with the transfer portal updates. I'll just go down the list here of players. If we've already talked about them, that's fine. Just to refresh your memory, if you've watched previous episodes, just stay with me. We'll start with the biggest one probably, and that's quarterback Brock Vandagriff. He signed with Kentucky after entering the portal. It was a very quick decision to enter the portal, and I think that, just to refresh y'all's mind, I think that's when he kind of got wind that Carson Beck was coming back. Although this was way before we got the news of Carson Beck coming back. I think a lot of that's just being held close to the vest, like a lot of Georgia's opt-ins versus opt-outs, playing or not playing in the bowl game. Next, we got wide receiver Jackson Meeks. He officially signed with Syracuse, joining Georgia's former defensive back coach there. Offensive lineman Austin Blasky signed with North Carolina. Outside linebacker Darius Smith signed with Missouri. Defensive lineman Jonathan Jefferson signed with SMU. Outside linebacker CJ Madden signed with Purdue. And we still have in the portal kicker Jared Zirkle, because we do have a rising sophomore at kicker who was phenomenal this season, and we've discussed that as well. So Jared obviously wanted some more of the kicking duties, so he's gone, more than likely, although he hasn't committed yet. I'm sure somebody will pick him up. Dad's in the chat, says go Dogs. Yes, sir, go Dogs, always. Cornerback Nyland Green is also in the portal. Has not committed yet. Wide receiver Mekhi Muse, the former walk-on and return specialist for Georgia this season, is in the portal and uncommitted at this point. Linebackers EJ Lightsey and Xavier Sori are also in the portal. Georgia Lightsey's going to Georgia Tech. Couldn't have picked a worse place, my guy. All the best to you, but bumblebees, really. And Sori going to Arkansas. I can stomach that a little bit more, especially when they're not playing Georgia. DB Jameer Moten is uncommitted at this point. Offensive lineman Alu Ba committed to Maryland. And then we've got wide receiver Logan Johnson, who's a local Athens kid from Prince Avenue. He, I believe, was a walk on and is uncommitted at this point. Wide receiver Zeed Haynes signed with Syracuse also, joining um, Jackson Meeks and Georgia's former DB coach as he builds a program there. And I mean, you figured he would take some of Georgia's coaching staff with him, possibly, and some of the lower members of the coaching staff, and then some of the players too will end up following him. Maybe Nyland Green, some of these other uncommitted defensive players potentially. That's just my opinion. And then wide receiver, cornerback AJ Harris is uncommitted at this point. Another potential, I guess, Syracuse watch out there. And then linebacker Jamon Dumas Johnson, he decided to go to Kentucky. And then outside linebacker Marvin Jones Jr. decided to go to Florida State. And then offensive lineman Joshua Miller is uncommitted at this point. I want to circle back to Dumas Johnson going to Kentucky. So as you've heard us say before, and me in particular say before, Dumas Johnson initially was probably the biggest surprise. Brock Vandegrift is probably the flashier name because he's a quarterback. But Dumas Johnson kind of took me by surprise when he announced. But at the end of the day, you see this linebacker class that we just signed, and it makes a ton of sense. I said on our last episode that, this linebacker class has the opportunity to return Georgia to having one of the best linebacker rooms in the country. Again, this year took a little step back in that category, but next year, yes, they'll be young, but definitely a lot of potential in that room. And Kirby's going to be able to coach those guys up and get them up to speed, and they're going to develop into some special players. Dad saying also AJ Harris was a surprise. Yeah, he definitely was. Kind of going along what I was just saying about Kirby getting guys up to speed on defense. Any defensive player that his name or that was a stud coming out of high school, they're definitely always going to be a shock to leave the program because Kirby is the premier defensive coach in America. If you want to get to the next level, if you want to go to the draft and be successful in the league at the NFL level, right now you want to go to Georgia if you play on defense. That's just there's no argument against that, really. I mean, there's some other schools that'll get you there just because you get the exposure, but I don't think you quite get the development that Kirby and his staff are providing to defensive players right now, specifically DBs, because that was Kirby's specialty, but really all throughout each level of the defense. So, and Dumas Johnson, follows Brock Vandegrift to Kentucky. I find that interesting as well about the Dumas Johnson move. So we could have, a stud offensive player at the quarterback position, a stud defensive player at the linebacker position, leave the program, go to another SEC school in the old SEC East, and potentially have some success. I think both guys will eventually be drafted. Dumas Johnson's, leaving probably purely due to needing more snaps after his injury to to NFL scouts and teams that he can stay healthy because he's got the talent, got the work ethic, and has the ability to be a linebacker at the next level. So clearly about snaps and definitely the opportunity to start for him as well as Vandegrift. So um, just a couple of interesting points there, and they're going to get to do it on the same team. And again, um, Georgia will go, I think, to Kentucky early next season. So it'll be interesting to go up against those two um, in the blue and white. And then another big announcement since we've last done a portal update is wide receiver London Humphreys coming over from Vanderbilt. This so far is the only incoming transfer that I have heard about to this point. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if that's changed in the last few hours. But again, this is big. This is a guy that can stretch the defense and his big body. He scored on the opening drive against Georgia this year, I believe, and he looks like he would be the part. A typical Georgia wide receiver, big, strong, physical, can block, can run after the catch, good hands. So, yeah, I know on one of our previous episodes, Matthew poo-pooed it because he's from Vanderbilt, and we all don't really give Vanderbilt a lot of credit, but still Division I athlete, a really, really good player, and he cooked Georgia's defense this year. So I have to give him props for that. So really excited about that. Coming to a wide receiver room too that is kind of getting a little thin. I mean, I named 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers that are leaving the program. So definitely, some holes to fill on the roster. I know we had a couple come in this recruiting class, but they'll be freshmen. So I made a point about quarterbacks being freshmen and starting for Kirby. Same thing at the skill position. It's hard to get on the field as a freshman at skill positions for Kirby unless you're just head and shoulders above your class ahead of the game. And, you've really got to work your arse off to get on the field if you're going to be a freshman. Or just be a stud. One of the two. Usually both would help. But yeah, that's really the portal update to the moment. Now I'll give a little bit of like what I think is to come. Let's forecast a little bit. I still think ETN from Florida is very much in play for the Dogs. I think now that the initial national big signing day has happened, it's not the only time high school kids can sign, but it's the big day. So now that that's behind us and we know the majority of who's coming to Georgia next season, all these transfers that are considering Georgia in the transfer portal, I think we'll start having them filter in here. So that'll be huge. And yes, Dad, thank you for reminding me about that. I did see about Xavier McLeod earlier from South Carolina. He is a defensive lineman. And, I was at the South Carolina game this year, and I believe I recall him having a pretty good game against us. It was kind of a little bit of a windy, overcast, drizzly game. So it definitely favored South Carolina early in the season. Georgia's still finding their footing. Everybody's like, oh, fire Bobo and all that crap. Miss me with that. But South Carolina and Xavier McLeod had a good day that day against the offensive line that was still trying to gel. Carson Beck trying to get some flow and some chemistry with this offense early in the season. So, yeah, McLeod was a highly rated defensive lineman out of high school, um, pretty highly recruited. Went to South Carolina because, you know, you wanted snaps, you wanted playing time. Now Georgia's had some studs on defense, and the defensive line in particular move on out. Got a few more as freshmen coming in with this class, but I think Xavier will come in and contribute pretty pretty significantly next season. So um, Dad's also saying that we sit well with the receiver from Miami to pair with ETN. That would be good. Like I said, the wide receiver room's getting kind of thin, so we definitely need some more help there. Help me with his name if you don't mind, Dad. Like to at least mention his name. So then you forget his name. Okay, I can look it up. It's no big deal. But the good part about it is, regardless of the guy's name, regardless of his production to this point, I think Kirby's been very, very targeted in the beginning. I guess you can consider this the pre-off season period because you know the portal still being in the season is kind of jacked up, and we can talk about that another day. But it just kind of it's kind of weird because you're kind of having an off season here, and then you're going to play a bowl game, and then you go into the off season again. Um, so I think college football definitely needs to fix that, and that would be a good show for another day. But Kirby has had a very concerted effort to fill holes on this roster based on the weaknesses that Alabama exposed. What could Georgia not do against Alabama? The wide receivers couldn't separate. We couldn't, Brock Bowers was gimpy. Lad McConkey was gimpy, who I think Lad McConkey has a great chance of coming back for his senior year. Like we've talked about on previous episodes, he, needs to come back like Dumas Johnson. Whether Dumas Johnson is going to Kentucky, but Ladd, if he comes back to Georgia, which I think he will, he needs to prove that he can stay healthy for a full season and be productive again, like he has been, for 2.5 years at Georgia. I say 2.5 because he's missed a lot of games. So that's definitely something that he needs to do. Dad says Colby Young is the wide receiver's name from Miami. So hey, we'll take it. Like I said, all the help, we'll take it because I mean, the one way to keep this train rolling and keep it coming down the tracks, so to speak, is to just keep bringing in studs. Just keep it rolling. And Kirby understands that because as soon as your recruiting momentum, your transfer momentum dies out, then your Clemson, you know, falling off of the mountaintop. Yeah, Georgia's not going to stay at the mountaintop for 3 straight years, but it's definitely not a 2 straight years and boom. I mean, Georgia's just taking this little step down and then it's going to be right back up. I mean, next year competing for a national championship with a senior returning quarterback who is going to get drafted in the first round, would have this year if he came out. I'll stick with that. And all these supporting players returning. Yeah, people point to the 19 transfers out, but we're bringing one in. We're bringing in all these young studs that Kirby will have ready to fill holes. as well as the rest of whoever we get in the transfer portal, which, again, you're going to get more proven players with experience. And I believe, like I said, Kirby has had a plan about filling holes on this roster. So, um, my faith in Kirby and his staff is not wavering. It never did, never has, really. I've always been a huge believer in Kirby, as a recruiter, as a coach, everything. So, um, in Kirby, we trust, right? He's gotten us to places we've never been before. So, um, in Kirby, we trust forever, for sure. Um, Now, I do want to transition here to the preview of the Orange Bowl, um, because it is a little over a week away, 8 days away now at this point. We haven't heard very much on Georgia's end other than Beck's playing, which is huge, and Beck clearly has thoughts of ending this season with another win. I think the whole team is laser focused because you're not hearing much out of Georgia. There's no drama surrounding Georgia like what's surrounding Florida State right now. Because if you've been paying attention, Florida State not only has a lot of opt outs and injuries, they are still pissed off and rightfully so about the playoff. And that's kind of not going anywhere. I mean, I guess it's kind of slowly dying out, but I mean, it's still a thing. And now today they come out and say that they're suing the ACC over uh, their media rights deal, right? Because the ACC's deal is the most trash media rights deal I've ever seen, especially compared to the SEC and the Big Ten now. So they have a right to be pissed off there in Tallahassee. And they probably are looking at moving out of the ACC if they can, you know, finagle that, which I guess they could if they bring up renegotiation. But um, yeah, the drama is definitely more on Florida State's side of this game. That's why I think Vegas is taking note of that. But it's kind of from the jump when the matchup was announced. Florida State was a big underdog in this game. I think 12 or 13 points initially. Now it's like 14 and a half with the opt outs and all the drama. So, of course, quarterback Jordan Travis is out due to his horrific injury. Um, Let me just spend a second on Jordan Travis. I just want to shout him out. What a great young man. The way that he's handled his injury, continuing to be there for his team, but not only that, just the words, the wise words for such a young guy um, in his press conferences. He's just a great all around dude, and I definitely, when I have a son one day, I'd like for him to be kind of like Jordan Travis. I mean, just solid dude, high character, and well spoken, a great leader. So, uh, shout out to him. I hope he has um, an easy time in recovery and he's able to recover in time to put on a show at the combine or at a pro day so that he can get drafted and make generational money for his family. They also have Florida State running back Trey Benson. He decided to opt out. He was one of the first ones, as far as I'm aware, along with Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, tight end. Those are two wide receivers. If you don't know much about Florida State's roster, but those two are kind of national names. Then we've got tight end Jaheim Bell, who's also a stud on offense for them, and then three studs on defense. Jared Verse on the defensive line, who's getting top 10 grades. Defensive lineman Fabian Lovett, don't know if I'm saying that right. And then linebacker DJ Lundy, who is actually transferring out. But a lot of Florida State's. I mean, if you were to put together a list of the most important players for Florida State, I mean, you can't do much better than this list right here. So it'll be interesting to see how Mike Norvell is able to get his team ready for this game with all the distractions, with everything that's going on for Florida State. Just you feel for them, but at the same time, there's a game to be played. So that's Norvell's job to get them ready, despite all of the guys not playing, despite the outside noise and just all the craziness surrounding that program right now. He built it back up, to the top to be one of the premier programs in the country now. And so you got to keep that going. You got to have a good showing against the back-to-back national champs. And Georgia will be that until another champion is crowned. So, and we'll be the defending champs until another champion is crowned, but we'll always be the back-to-back national champs in 21 and 22. So, I mean, this game probably would ordinarily mean a lot more to Florida State. Just so you can keep the perfect season alive and really stick it to the committee and prove that you really deserved that playoff spot, even with a backup quarterback. But I really think there's not going to be enough on the field for them. I mean, their heavy hitters are out. I mean, yeah, Georgia's got 19 transfers too, but the main guys for Georgia will be there, and mainly at quarterback. We'll be down a couple of weapons, but that just gives some of these young guys an opportunity. And they've been getting reps in practice too. So, I mean, it doesn't worry me. We're going to have the best quarterback. We're going to have the best defense with these opt-outs from Florida State. Absolutely. You can say Georgia's got the best defense. Got the better running backs. Got the better secondary. So, I mean, I just see this going Georgia's way. With me trying to really be as unbiased as I can be. Georgia's just got more guys that'll be available for this game and will be hungry to prove that they too were left out of this playoff. I mean, nobody's really talking about that nationally, at least. You can forget ESPN talking about it because they got their darling Alabama in. But Georgia definitely has something to prove. Like, you slighted us, you took away our opportunity to three-peat, which nobody's done in a really long time, and nobody really cares the last time it was done. So, my early prediction for this game would probably be, Georgia 35-21, something like that. I guess that wouldn't cover the 14.5 spread, but if it goes back to 14, Georgia gets out of there with a cover. maybe Florida State doesn't even score 21. I mean, that all depends on the offense. Now, it won't be the third string quarterback. I think it'll be the second string quarterback. So that maybe gives them a bump on offense. Let's say 35-14 right now. Um, we'll go with that for my early prediction, but we will be on here to give our final predictions next week before the game. Um, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it up here for tonight. Didn't want to be on too long. We did have, enough updates for you guys, but um, I feel like, Georgia definitely is in a much better position today than this time a week ago because there was uncertainty surrounding Carson Beck, around, um, just how many guys are transferring out. Are we going to lose more commits? There were starting to be some rumblings in Athens, but I think all that has been alleviated. Beck is coming back. I think we'll hear about Lad McConkey coming back. I think we're going to get ETN. We might get some other weapons in this portal before the portal closes this window. And who knows? I mean, there's another opportunity after spring as well. Guys can transfer after spring, which is crazy to me, but you could pick up somebody else then as well. That's a game changer for us. But you're starting to see what this roster is going to look like, and it's exciting. This is the most exciting time for Georgia football, hands down. Best time. These are the glory days, so it's a great time to be a dog. So just super excited for the bowl game and then next season. So, my closing thoughts here would just be, you know, it's Friday, a couple of days before Christmas. Just want everybody to. One thing I've noticed recently is that there've been some, just with my job, there's just been some people maybe not being as nice as they could be at this time of year, whether it be employee to employee or customer to employee or employee to customer. Um, you know, there's no need for that. People, you should always just be nice. You never know what somebody's going through. Um, and this time of year is about love and about family, and it's not about gifts. It's not about everything else that we make it about. So um, it's about our Lord and Savior, and loving people, and being kind and giving. Uh, and so just keep that in mind this Christmas, and everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Enjoy it. Hug your loved ones, because I know there's a lot of us this time of year. Speaking of what someone could be going through, you could, have just lost a loved one. So you're definitely in our thoughts and prayers. I know this time can be tough for people that have just experienced that, but just love on everyone and be a light to the world. That's what we're called to do. So thank y'all for tuning in tonight. I'm going to stop rambling now and just want to give a quick announcement. We will not be having a show on Sunday due to it being Christmas Eve, and we'll be celebrating with family. Look for us to most likely be back on Tuesday night as normally scheduled, but if that changes, we'll try to get something out to update you guys. So thank y'all. Merry Christmas. Have a good night. And as always, go dogs.